Afternoon, everybody. This is Kathy Bennett. I am Senior Vice President for Public Policy with the Greater Kansas City Chamber. Thank you all for joining us. We truly appreciate it, and I think we're going to have a great session today with the Congresswoman. She's going to tell you what she's been up to, and then you will have the chance to ask questions. As Adam said, put those in the chat function, send them to Kathy Bennett if you would. So not to my email. Last week I got several sent to my email. I'm not monitoring my email during this call, but I am monitoring the chat function. So please, if you could do that, that would be tremendous. And we're going to get to as many as we can and as the Congresswoman has time for. So just a short reminder, Congresswoman Davids was elected to the U.S. House, serving the Kansas 3rd District in the fall of 2018. She graduated from Leavenworth High School, Johnson County Community College, and UMKC before she earned her law degree from Cornell Law School. Congresswoman Davids served as a White House Fellow under President Barack Obama. When she was sworn into the 116th Congress, Representative Davids became one of the two first Native American women to serve in our Congress. She is a resident of Overland Park, and she serves on the following committees: the U.S. House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. She serves as the vice chair of the Subcommittee on Aviation, but also serves on the Subcommittee for Highways and Transit, Economic Development, Public Buildings, and Emergency Management. Also of interest to many on the call today, Congresswoman Davids serves on the House Committee on Small Business. She serves on the Subcommittee for Economic Growth, Tax and Capital Access, and the Subcommittee on Innovation and Workforce Development. Congresswoman Davids was a supporter just recently of federal relief for 501c6 agencies, of which the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce is one. And 501c6s, we believe, will be vital to the economic recovery, not only of our bi-state region, but of throughout our country. So Congresswoman, we thank you for that support. We thank you for agreeing to share your time with us today, for your public service, for your great staff, whom we have enjoyed working with now for about 1.5 years, just tremendous. And the floor is yours. So thank you so much, Congresswoman.
Thank you, Kathy. Thanks for having me on. And thanks for setting this up. It sounds like this is becoming a regular occurrence for you all doing these town halls. I am, first of all, just want to thank you for following the social physical distancing guidelines and hosting your meeting virtually. I know that a lot of us are still trying to adjust to all of this, but I know it's really important to help slow this pandemic down. And then I think it's really important to acknowledge just how difficult the situation has been for the folks in our community, whether it's our schools, businesses, the nonprofits, employees, folks who have been furloughed and that sort of thing. I've been having a lot of conversations with business owners from all over the district here and from all different sectors about the devastating impact that this virus is having on particularly our small business owners' ability to pay their employees or to keep their businesses afloat, and in some cases put food on the table for their families. And, this is certainly an unprecedented time that we're living through. But I really feel like from all the folks that I've seen step up in our community, I know we're going to get through this, and supporting each other is a key way that we're going to be able to do that, because this community and our country, frankly, we're resilient. And I know we're going to be working on innovative and creative ways of tackling the challenges that are coming up in the weeks and months ahead of us. So you mentioned this, Kathy, and I appreciate it, that, our office is always here to work with folks and to be as helpful as we possibly can, whether that's our chamber partners. And that's our partnership is one of the reasons that I have been vocal about my support for making sure that chambers are able to access some of this relief and these coronavirus related packages that we've been passing, as well as our small business owners and the folks who are working in our communities, the folks on the front lines, whether that's healthcare workers or people who are keeping us fed day in and day out. So the best way for us to do that is by staying in touch with everybody. In my view, that's a two-way street. So one of the things our office has done is created a coronavirus resource page on our website. And for folks who maybe haven't visited the website before, it's davids.house.gov or just slash. I've been saying backslash. Apparently I'm supposed to just say slash these days. Coronavirus. So davids.house.gov/coronavirus. And we're updating that very regularly. So we're keeping that up to date with the latest public health information from the CDC, from our local public health folks. And we're also including things like, and we'll get more into this here in a little bit, but the disaster aid and other relief that is available for small business owners, information about how to access unemployment insurance and food assistance, and a lot of other things. So I just encourage folks to please go check that out. So just a little bit about the work that we've been doing, and I'll try to make this quick so that we can get to the Q&A section, because I feel like it's a lot more useful for everyone's time if I'm answering the questions that you have of me. So at the federal level, I've voted now for 4 bipartisan pieces of legislation that provide relief related to this coronavirus pandemic. All of those, they're all bipartisan, and the president signed all of those very quickly into law. So I have felt very good about the fact that we've got so much bipartisan support around getting some of this emergency response legislation in place. So the first bill was an $8.3 billion emergency response package that implemented a lot of vital measures, but notably it enabled the Small Business Administration to make an approximately $7 billion in low-cost economic injury disaster loans to small businesses. And then we followed that up with a second bill, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which had, again, bipartisan support. And that bill expanded access to emergency paid sick leave to upwards of 87 million people. It also provided eligible full-time employees with 2 weeks of additional paid time off. Because there are a lot of working people who don't have paid leave, or are being, actually have to choose between their paycheck, their health, and the health of the people around them. And so we thought that was an important piece to get in there. And then the third coronavirus related bill was the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, or the CARES Act, which I think is the one that has gotten probably the most news coverage. And that, again, was a bipartisan economic stimulus package. It was designed to help keep our economy, particularly the small businesses, afloat during this unprecedented economic, we're having unprecedented economic uncertainty right now. So I would say that bill was far from perfect, but it did provide some immediate relief to medical professionals on the front line, to working families, and included programs to help small businesses. So I'll get to the small business section of that in just a second, but the CARES Act also included provisions like direct rebates to Americans to help provide some financial relief during this crisis, and then improvements to unemployment benefits that included an additional $600 per week for the next 4 months. And then more of the disaster aid to small businesses in the form of the EIDL and Paycheck Protection programs. And then new emergency funding for hospitals across the country to make sure that the doctors, nurses, and other healthcare professionals have the things that they need. And then there were accountability measures in there that I want to make sure to mention, because as we can see, when things start moving really quickly, especially at the federal level, there's definitely a need to make sure that these programs are being rolled out in the way that they were intended. So, like I said earlier, the legislation certainly is no piece of legislation is perfect, but some of the relief measures, like the Paycheck Protection Program, which is the small business funding, ran out of money within weeks of the implementation of that. And even before the program ran out of money, there were a number of problems, including the loans going to chains and companies that did not fit within the intent of why Congress passed this bill. To the intent is to get relief directly to truly small business owners, and then that forced a lot of us to really push the leaders in both parties to come to an agreement to one, get more funding into the Paycheck Protection Program, and two, make sure that the relief is actually going to small businesses that need it the most. And then, last week I jumped on a plane to DC to vote on the most recent bipartisan piece of legislation, which did a few things. It first of all, it infused the Paycheck Protection Program with another $310 billion in additional funding. $30 billion of that was reserved for community-based lenders and small banks and credit unions, and then another $30 billion for medium-sized banks and credit unions. So when we get to the Q&A portion, I feel like this will be a pretty key area. So, I want to make sure that folks know that I'm looking forward to hearing both the struggles and also if there are folks who have had a positive experience at all. I would like to hear what's working and not working around that, because I know this morning the SBA resumed accepting applications for the Paycheck Protection Program. You can apply through any of the existing SBA 7A lenders for folks who are familiar with those programs already, or through any of the, if it's a federally insured depository institution, if it's a federally insured credit union, and even the Farm Credit System is participating. So in addition to the Paycheck Protection Program, there was also an additional $50 billion for the SBA, the Economic Injury and Disaster Loans, which are also called EIDL, which can leverage into an additional $350 billion in loans. And then there's $10 billion in there for the grants under the EIDL program. So that's, around the small business piece, that's probably the most pertinent information on that. And then we also, in the last package, provided $75 billion in resources to hospitals and frontline workers, and then $25 billion for testing and a national strategy around testing. which is, it's key to stopping the spread of the virus. And it's also key to making sure that we are able to get up and going again with our economy, and that people can feel safe and understand where, who has the virus and that sort of thing. So, we have a lot of work to do in Congress, including making sure that the things like the Paycheck Protection Program don't, you know, don't continue to have the same problems that they've been having. But one of those problems is running out of funding. So the Paycheck Protection Program it was clear that it was going to run out of funding. So like very early on, then we like I said, we got to infuse 310 billion in additional funding. But I actually think that we're going to need to do more than that. And that's why I've signed on to and been pushing for us to take up a bill that would extend the Paycheck Protection Program, and it's more of a long-term fix, but to infuse another $900 billion in funding into that program. So while I was out in DC, I had the chance to talk to the SBA administrator, Administrator Carranza, about the issues that have been plaguing this program, including the lack of clear guidance for our small business owners and for the lenders. And I'm going to continue to push for our small businesses to be the ones who get the direct relief. And one of the things that helps us do that is to hear from you all about your experience with those programs. The last thing I want to talk about is just the work we have to do to address the public health portion of this. I mentioned the $25 billion for testing. We definitely need to make sure that we get more widespread testing. We have got to get more protective equipment for our healthcare and frontline workers, and then getting some support to our state and local governments. We're starting to see more and more the issues that are coming up with the state and local governments around this, and then getting assistance to our hospitals. So there's a lot more work for us to be doing. I'm working to make sure that the priorities of, our area, our community here are incorporated into any of the legislation that Congress moves forward on. And so, the best way for me to do that is to hear from you all. I'm constantly sharing with my colleagues that the economic security of the Midwest and of Kansas is vital to the economic security of our entire country. We're very strategically placed right here in the middle of the country, and this region cannot be overlooked when it comes to the economic security of our country. So, I would just encourage all of you to please reach out to our office if you have questions, concerns, or if there are issues that are coming up that you think that our office needs to be made aware of. Please do not hesitate to reach out. And then I know that so many folks are hurting right now. This has been devastating for so many people across the country and in our community. And I want our office to be here to help in any way that we can. So with that, I'll turn it back over. Kathy, if you want to jump into the questions.
Wonderful. And Congresswoman, thank you so much for your support of the 4 bipartisan bicameral votes to bring 4 phases of relief back to your district and to the state of Kansas and our bi-state region and our country. We truly appreciate that support and that bipartisan action. I've got a couple questions here. The first one is focused on your role on the Transportation Committee. What is the likelihood of an immediate backstop for the state DOTs in order to prevent major disruptions in their ability to operate and maintain their transportation systems, since we are likely to see a significant drop in gas tax revenues during and immediately following the pandemic?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and I'm glad you to whoever brought that issue up, because it has been it's been a really big focus for, Chairman DeFazio has, I think, been doing a really great job of bringing this issue to the forefront of the conversations around the next relief package. Because for anybody who works on these kinds of projects, you know that when you lose a day, of work on a project like this, it's not a day for day. It's more like, every day that goes by, the time slip just, it grows and grows and grows. And so the worst case scenario for us would be to see projects that were either shovel ready or had already gotten started to miss out on the opportunity to continue going forward, because states aren't able to continue to see the revenue that they would have seen because of the drop in gas revenues and that sort of thing. So we've been pushing to make sure that there is relief in there for states, particularly when we're talking about the DOTs, the state transportation departments, because first of all, our infrastructure is key to public health. And second of all, our infrastructure investments is key to making sure that we get that once we get on the other side of this thing, because we will be on the other side of this thing at some point, that we're able to really have a thriving economy, because the investment in infrastructure really pays dividends in terms of full-time jobs, in terms of good paying jobs. So we've been pushing to get that into this next package. And I'm confident that, the chairman is gonna fight tooth and nail for that too.
Many people on this call will be pleased to hear that. And I might just editorialize just a bit now. Over the past few weeks, we've had the chance to visit with some of our largest engineering and infrastructure firms in the region, and some of our smallest and some of our female and minority owned firms. And they all, no matter size, share the concern that, well, they may not be feeling it significantly now. It's just a matter of weeks, and into the summer months, when these large state and local government projects will just not be available, and they'll fill it maybe a few weeks delayed from some of the other businesses in our region. So we really appreciate you looking hard at that opportunity. Next question, we're going to pivot to your small business role. And this writer says, news reports indicate there are continuing problems for small businesses accessing PPP funding. You did speak a little bit to that. Continued problems with error messages and slow processing, according to news reports just today. And I know you said you talked to the SBA administrator. Is there any more details about why we're seeing all those problems, and what they're doing to make sure in this next round that maybe there won't be as many error messages and problems accessing the applications and just getting through?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that I would say to that specific question. First of all, when in my conversation with Secretary Carranza over at the Small Business Administration, there were a number of people on the committee who were asking about the various. There have been what I would consider to be various failure points here that have made it really hard for our small businesses to access this program. And also I would consider them to be failure points where companies that probably, companies that should not have been in line before some of our small businesses here in Kansas. So I think that one, they have said that they're scaling up the number of employees that they have. She indicated that they were hiring somewhere around 500 additional employees. And after hearing from some of the lending institutions, and I spoke with a number of people who are at some of our local banks here, and they were seeing, where they would normally have seen a couple hundred applications over the course of multiple months, they were seeing 1,000 applications in one day. And so I think that I do think that the SBA should be scaling up and hiring more people to address this, the just burden that has, clearly taxed their system, and made it harder for our small business owners to get the relief they need. And then the second thing is making sure that we're getting the resources over there, and that's why I've been pushing to get that extension of the Paycheck Protection Program and get additional funding into that program, because I think that one problem has been the lack of guidance, which they are working on, and we need to see it happen much faster, because the guidance should have been out there much earlier on. And then the second piece is to get the resources there. And then that third piece is the additional personnel that they need in the SBA to make sure that we don't have people waiting for 14 days, and any other time might not have felt as significant as it does right now. The difference for a small business owner and being able to meet payroll and pay some of their essential bills, 14 days is a lifetime, and it's unacceptable for folks to have to wait that long for that.
Number of people on the call, happy to hear that, especially the scaling up at the SBA. That's good music to our ears. Next question. I suspect that you and your staff are receiving significant inquiries from residents that are confused by varying federal, state, and local orders. What are you hearing from your constituents relative to this, and how are you keeping open lines of communication on the state and local front?
Yeah, you're right. We are definitely hearing from a lot of folks who have been, frankly, just, to hear one thing from, let's say the briefing from the, administration, and then to hear another briefing from our governor, and then to hear another briefing from, let's say, the county public health departments. One of the things that we're doing to try to make sure that folks have a clear picture of the information that's out there is putting up the Coronavirus Resource Center on our website. Again, that's davids.house.gov/coronavirus. The other thing that we're doing is sending around, and if folks go on to that resource center, you can sign up for our newsletter. And ordinarily, we wouldn't be sending out the newsletter as frequently, but with how quickly everything is changing these days, we're sending out fairly regular information about whether it's CDC guidelines or, here in this area, I imagine that most folks have heard the term Core 4, Wyandotte County, Johnson County, Jackson County, and then the Kansas City, City of Kansas City government all come together and meet fairly regularly. And, they had a stay-at-home directive that predated the state of Kansas. And so I do think that a lot of times people are trying to figure out, okay, where do I fall in all of this? And so we're trying to keep that information updated on our website. And then I just would ask folks to please sign up for our newsletter, because that helps us get the information out there, because not everybody is on Facebook or Twitter, and I think I think that's a good way. The other thing that we're doing is we've been hosting Facebook Live question and answer sessions. We had one with Secretary Garcia with the Kansas Department of Labor. We had one with Secretary Tolan with the Kansas Department of Commerce. We've had a number with medical professionals and public health professionals, so that we can, just try to make sure that there are ways for people to access the information. And then we've also had some telephone town halls. Apologies to folks who do not like those, but we have been able to have some really great guests come on and provide some very pertinent information. We had most recently we had the Johnson County Health Department. The new director of the Johnson County Health Department was on answering questions for folks.
Wonderful, thank you. Next question, as unemployment soars, what workforce development or employment services, policies, or resources are being considered as part of the COVID-19 recovery?
Mm-hmm. That's a really good question. So there are a couple of things that we're looking at. First, I want to highlight at the state level, only because I don't want to forget to mention this to folks. So the Secretary of Commerce has implemented, because there are a lot of people who have been either furloughed or laid off, or unfortunately we've seen some businesses close their doors for an undetermined amount of time. The Secretary of Commerce has started a program where they're helping people find, there are companies that are having to hire and scale up right now. And so if you go to the Commerce, Department of Commerce, the Kansas Department of Commerce site, you can find a link to jobs in the state of Kansas. And then on the Department of Labor side, I know that they've been inundated with phone calls and that sort of thing, but they have a website, getkansasbenefits.gov. My understanding is the website has had some issues, but I think they're doing updates regularly, and they're trying to address those. But getkansasbenefits.gov is a place for filing for unemployment for people who have unfortunately had to furlough or lay off folks. If you're in that position and it's coming, you are able, as a either small business owner or the HR department, to file by spreadsheet. It makes it easier for the company. It makes it easier for the workers as well. And then there are other, critical resources that you can find at getkansasbenefits.gov. In terms of the next coronavirus relief packages, we have been looking at ways to get the education system. So I've talked to our Kansas City, Kansas Community College and also Johnson County Community College, because they both have a lot of technical training that they've been implementing, and they're giving us some great ideas about things that we should be pushing for. Again, the transportation and infrastructure piece, we have been looking at the ways that we can ensure that people are able to continue to access those workforce programs and also the apprenticeships and that sort of thing. I'm just going to put in a quick ask. If folks are seeing something or working on something that you think that we should be pushing for in this next package around workforce, please reach out to our office, because I would love to hear from you about that. Because it's, like I said earlier, at some point we are going to be on the other side of this thing, and we have to make sure we're thinking about the long-term impacts that this is having on our workforce.
Thank you. You heard that, folks. She wants to hear from you, so we appreciate that. Next question. There are a lot of questions regarding the forgiveness portion of the PPP program. yet very little guidance from the SBA. The first round of funding is out the door, as we discussed, and the second round of funding will be out shortly. When can we expect to have final rules regarding forgiveness?
I'm glad this is getting brought up, because I think this is actually one of the places where I think that for me to say we need more guidance from SBA and Treasury, sometimes it's hard to pinpoint what that even means. It means exactly this kind of thing. What we have seen a lack of is guidance for, and this is part of what's holding up these. Nobody wants to apply for this thinking that there's going to be forgiveness, and then come to find out later that there's not. And so one of the reasons that I have been pushing so hard for us to get more guidance from SBA and Treasury specifically is because, no small business owner should be forced to decide between getting their relief right now and waiting because they aren't sure at the end of the day what the specific rules are going to be around the funding. I think, with the number of small business owners that I've talked to, they want to do the right thing and they want to be able to access the program. But what nobody wants is to have the rug pulled out from under them and be told one thing and then see another 3 months down the line. So I think that the most I can kind of promise right now is that I'm going to keep pushing for that guidance around that. And then as soon as we get it, it'll be something that that this is exactly the kind of information that we're sending around in those newsletters and that we're putting on our resource page. And then the other thing I would ask, and this might seem kind of interesting or even almost funny in an ironic kind of way, is that the folks who are on this call, and particularly those of you who are very active with the chamber and other chambers, if you're hearing rumblings about something, please reach out to our office and let us know, because as folks who are in this every single day and are communicating with other people who are very much impacted by this in your day-to-day work, you might hear some bit of information just a little bit earlier than our office does. And I say that generally around any kind of policy topic, but on this specifically, I imagine that the Greater KC Chamber is probably having regular conversations with other chambers regionally and nationally. And so, if you have information that you think is important, because then I can get on the phone with other members of Congress, I can call senators, or I can call the SBA, because I want to make sure that we're just that this region is being heard when these conversations are happening.
We appreciate that. Congresswoman, your staff tells me you may have time for one more question. Are you comfortable with one more?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
They usually have to drag me away, so.
Well, they do their job well, as do you. So what a great team you guys make. Next question, final question. We have multiple businesses that are just now starting to feel the impact, which we feel is going to last well beyond the 8 weeks covered in PPP. For payroll programs like EIDL going directly to the SBA rather than through community banks are not getting through the pipe very efficiently. So that's the preamble of this question asker. Their question is this: are there conversations happening about steps potentially that could be taken 3 to 4 months from now if economic activity is meaningfully slower to return? So conversations about what steps might be taken 3 to 4 months right now if the economic recovery does not come like people are hoping it will.
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually, and I'm glad I'm glad we're getting this question in because, like I mentioned earlier, I'm already co-sponsoring and pushing for a bill to get more resources into the Paycheck Protection program, because I do think that we have to be thinking more long term. Um, the first package that we passed was really helpful for the situation as we saw it at that point. And then just a couple of weeks later, the situation was more dire than we anticipated. And then again, we saw the economic impacts were starting to look more extreme than we had anticipated. And so one of the things that I have been pushing for is for us to get more funding into the Paycheck Protection Program and also the into the EIDL program, because they're two different types of programs, and they each serve an important function. And I want to make sure that you know if we get these programs further resourced, and a month from now we start to the clouds start to break and we start to see this thing slowing down a whole bunch, then that's great. But if that's not the case, then we will really have regretted not getting more funding into these programs. So I'm pushing for that. And the other thing I'll say is that I feel like I'm a broken record here and I'm preaching to the choir. The small business, small business is the backbone of our economy. And I look at this as we can either do not enough or anticipate in a way where it could be that we end up doing too much. Not enough is not an acceptable alternative to me. We have to do everything we can to support our small business community, because the consequences of not doing enough are just it will be too devastating for our economy. And so, if people would please reach out and let us know the ways that these programs are either working or not working, the hiccups you've run into, because this is, we're just in an unprecedented time, and that means that we need all the information we can get so that to make the best decisions possible for the policies going forward.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Thank you for being with us and devoting this much time to taking these questions. We appreciate your public service. We appreciate your support of 4 phases, or 3.5, however they describe it, of federal relief measures. And many of our folks will be looking to you and your colleagues for more assistance as we go further. But we do appreciate your time today and appreciate your public service. So thank you for being with us. I think you had a few remarks you wanted to say in closing, perhaps.
I just want to first of all say thank you for hosting this, especially in this time. I feel like the need for us to connect, although it's virtual, the need for us to connect is so important, because this job requires that I listen to people and try to understand to the extent possible that the ways that the laws that I'm voting on, the policies that I'm voting on, impact all of you. And so I just appreciate you all taking time out of, I'm sure you are so busy right now trying to navigate this crisis in whatever way that you need to. So taking the time out to put this together and to listen to me and to ask me questions, I feel like this has just been very much appreciated, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you all, and also from the chamber's perspective, hoping that we can get this issue of the C6 relief addressed.
Well, we love hearing that. Thank you so much for that commitment. And again, thank you for your time and your service. I guess you go back to DC next week. Is that correct?
That's what it's starting to look like right now. So,
okay. Well, good luck. Keep in touch. And thank you to all of our 80 plus people that were on the call. We truly appreciate your time and attention as well. Best wishes, Congresswoman. Keep us apprised of how we can assist you. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks so much, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.